I do not like New York Magazine, and what I mean is I just get really terrified every time I open up New York Magazine, and I don't know why. I just really don't know. There's just some anxiety that every time I see an issue of New York Magazine, like I don't have a problem with any of the others. Like the New Yorker I can read pretty well. I can read, I can read Time Magazine even after that horrific article that I just did a video on. I need to explain that. But yeah, I just really have a problem with New York Magazine. Now that's completely different to the New Yorker. As I just said, they're two separate magazines in case you're like me and you don't live in the US. Obviously I did start off liking New York Magazine, but then like as I kept reading through the issues, there's just like some stress or something that just comes with it. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it just makes me really like unhappy when I read it. And probably the easiest thing to do in that situation is obviously stop reading New York Magazine. Like I don't have to read it. It's not forced upon me to read it. But because I don't even live in New York, so why should I care about what's happening over there? But there's still a part of me that's like, you're missing out. And I'm aware of that. I'm aware there's nothing really worth me looking at unless I'm into like the inside scoop of New York socialites and the rich. Like they do great coverage on that. I have to give them that, like when they do articles, like the photos of like the social scene where they take photos of like an event and all the people that attended that event. I think I always love looking at that because I love looking at photos. If you know me, I love staring at like pictures of people for hours. Not as much as I used to when I was like a baby, but when I was like a baby, I would always just look through my parents' photo albums and just see, like it was just so fun to me to just look at people in this like still image and, you know, just try and see what their facial expressions are and stuff. I always find that really interesting. I could never be a photographer though. Don't give that out. Don't put that on me. So I like looking at that. Because you can just, you look at where they're from and you get to see, oh, this person's from Bushwick, they must be really rich. Well, look at me, I know so much about New York even though I don't even live there, and that's something I take pride in. Like I know which, you know, what suburbs, or no, I mean boroughs, as they say, New York borough, are like the rich, wealthier areas, urban areas. So, if I say like from Greenpoint and all these places, I'm starting to get a bit more familiar with, because before I just knew, I'd heard of Williamsburg and from other magazines that I'd read, and obviously Brooklyn, and so that's, I find that okay. It's not like the whole magazine is bad, but yeah, I just do not really like hearing about celebrity stuff. It kind of gives me like, I'm not trying to give the impression that it's trying to be a tabloid. I don't think that's New York Magazine. That obviously it's definitely, they have good journalists on there, and I like how they obviously, as I mentioned before, they take photos of random people who go to an event, and that kind of just shows like, oh, you don't have to be famous just to get on the magazine. And I really like that. There's just something about, you know, just taking photos of this woman from Bushwick, this like doctor's wife. I know it's very stereotypical, but I dropped my glasses. But it's just, it's very stereotypical, but except it's like you don't know this person. You've never heard of this person before, so it makes it quite interesting. And because we used to do that in where I live, our local newspaper, which is obviously not renowned like New York Magazine. Plus it was a newspaper, it wasn't a magazine, completely different. Oh, but we did, with the newspaper did come a magazine, and on that magazine, let me clarify, there was a whole social scene page where they'd take photos of all these people from, like, who'd go to events, and so that was kind of our version of New York Magazine, except not with a model background, like all these people when they're taking photos, they're like in a studio, and so they've got a blank wall behind them and they're just like posing. But whereas our people were just like basically middle class folks, so they were just like, they just took photos of them at the bar and things, so it's definitely very different, and I like that. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of the celebrity stuff. It just it makes me anxious. It makes me it angers me sometimes. I do like looking at the end of every magazine. I think it's really unique that they have the approval matrix. Like, I think that's definitely a clever thing to do, that put at the end of the magazine. And my fucking brat neighbour has just come in with his bike. He says hello, I'm guessing. And so yeah, I like the approval matrix. I think it shows a variety of information. It's entertaining because it's like, where does these people fit on our taste hierarchies? And so it's kind of making fun of famous people, and obviously events that happen in real life, which is good, I guess. Perhaps that I'm glad that people can make fun of celebrities. It feels like nowadays, if you make fun of, and New York Magazine has never hesitated to come after, like, Hollywood. Earlier this year, they did a whole cover story on the Nepo babies, as I soon came to find out. There's a term for that. I don't personally like the term, and I'm not a Nepo baby, but I find that term really annoying. So, yeah, but I have to I was like, hats off to them for that, doing the article, because I know it pissed off so many famous people, and so many famous people wrote in complaints and stuff. And it's not that I'm jealous of those people. It definitely gets to you when you think these people have got backing and stuff for their success. Obviously that's going to make anyone annoyed. And there's definitely people I admire who are also Nepo babies, but I still like them, but at the same time I'm like, I still, obviously it annoys me, like, would they have this much success if they didn't have backing or whatever? And so yeah, I have to give the magazine that they're not afraid to stand their ground and talk about things. I just went silent. I was checking the time, but yeah, I just think I just can't read it sometimes. It scares the shit out of me, yet I read it every fortnight. It's very strange. That's how my mind works. I guess as I've gotten older, I know, I've understood about being famous, and I know what it's like to be famous. I mean, I never know what it is like to be famous, but I'm obviously aware, more than I was younger actually, that I get that fame is not the answer. I get that, but it sort of is at the same time. It's good to be successful, and it's good to, so that's where I see these people in these magazines, and it just gives me this sort of like fury inside me. Like, why is this worth covering in here? Or, yeah. I don't want to just say it's old because of one person, but sometimes I find the writing a bit annoying of New York Magazine. Yeah, I think that the journalists are good, but the way they write is definitely can be condescending at times. And I think that's just they're trying to be the New York sense of humour. Apparently there's a New York sense of humour, but obviously I haven't laughed. I'm not from New York, but I do think they're kind of smug, and New Yorkers can be kind of smug. I mean, I'm yet to experience that. But, yeah, it's just that, I guess. So, New York Magazine is definitely my least favourite New York publication. My first would be New York Review of Books. I absolutely adore that magazine. It's just a comfort for me. Every time I read that, I know there's not going to be something in there that annoys me, or it's just book reviews, or sometimes movie reviews, or sometimes art exhibition reviews, but generally book reviews. And I learn about so many new authors, and it's definitely a feel-good magazine. Not to say that New York Magazine isn't, it's just really, it definitely doesn't make me feel as good. And second place would be the New Yorker. I quite like the New Yorker. I think it's the writers aren't too condescending. I think obviously the difference is New York Magazine is a bit more younger, appeals to younger audiences. Like, it's more of a millennial type magazine. There's more like fashion, like reviews, and celebrities giving their 2 cents on if this product works or whatever. But we'll never be able to afford it. So in that sense, I'd much rather read Frankie Magazine, which is a magazine that I stopped reading almost a year ago now. I can't believe it. It's already been a fucking year. But yeah, that magazine for me was it had all these. It was very arty. It had all these spreads on clothes and fashion that I did buy some of the clothes, but they were so expensive. I mean, by buying the clothes, I mean my parents bought them for me. But they were definitely there was so much more that I wanted to buy, but that were thousands of dollars. But except I knew it was Frankie Magazine, so it was just it's obviously going to be well made and things. But obviously the magazine just stopped becoming as interesting to me, and I just stopped buying it because I lost interest. It wasn't as good as it used to be, and I've been reading it for 5 years, so I felt like it's time for a change. And so then I discovered the New Yorker and New York Magazine, and through the New Yorker cartoons. I quite like the New Yorker cartoons. I used to get really pissed off when I found out I wasn't in it. My cartoons were not getting accepted and other people's were, but then other people's captions were pretty shit. I still don't know if the cartoonists choose the captions or the editors or whatever add captions to the cartoon. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I've tried to submit cartoons with my own caption, and every single time it's been declined. And I shouldn't be surprised. They get probably billions of comics every day, but they still manage to put a bunch in every magazine, and they're not really that funny. They're really... Even my dad has said, wow, that is so funny. He shared it, he was being sarcastic, but I made him follow the New Yorker cartoons. And yeah. So, I started going on a tangent about New Yorker magazine, but that's second place, I guess, because I prefer it over New York Magazine. New York Magazine, there's just too much stuff in there, and it just messes with your head. If you've got a delicate head like mine, it can be quite stressful. Oh no, there's restaurant reviews. Everything is it's all over the shop, whereas New York is a bit more traditional, a bit more refined. It's not too messy when you open it. It's just you know where everything is, whereas New York Magazine, I would love to know if in New York, if more people like New York Magazine or New Yorker. Obviously have to go door knocking or something to ever get a response. But if you're from New York or America and you happen to be listening to this, you can't see my face for good reason. Please tell me, what is the popular opinion among those magazines in New York? Or does anyone in New York, or does no one in New York read those? Maybe it's really unpopular now because of social media. No one really reads paper magazines anymore. I would love to hear from you, so please comment down below so I feel less alone. I'm going to go now and film another record another recording of myself because I'm kind of behind on my uploading schedule. So I'm going to do that because I have to home to myself for the next few hours. And yeah, see ya.